Happy New Year. This is Wondrous Roots, your health from the ground up. My name is Becky Montrone. We have a business here in Keene called Wondrous Roots. I am a certified holistic healthcare practitioner with a degree in holistic nutrition, and I'm also a full herbalist. So herbal medicine, botanical medicine. So we make here in Keene, New Hampshire, a lot of products that are my original formulas. We have lots of tinctures is the old-timey word, but liquid extracts of very many herbs. And then I blend those for different things like a kidney and stone formula or anti-inflammatory or arthritis or, flu ends, nip it in the bud, you name it, things like that. And we also have a skincare line that we do here. And those are my formulas. And just did a new one, my DMSO pain cream. So I took our pain oil that as the base, made a cream out of it and added DMSO. We talked about DMSO a few weeks ago. So anyway, so we are located on the 3rd floor of the Miller Forge building here in Keene, New Hampshire on Roxbury Street. Our official shop hours are open hours are 9:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. I see clients in private consultation, either here in the office or via teleconference like this on Zoom or phone, if that is what works best for you. And what else do I want to say? You can reach out to me from either of my websites, wondrousroots.org or shopwondrousroots.com. Go to contact us and send a message. It comes to my private email. And I'm the one who sees those and handles them, and I will get back to you. So I think that's all I want to say. So last week, I didn't do a program over the holiday weekend, and I mentioned in my news, my email that went out, that I would be talking about chronic fatigue syndrome today. And so I was in the process of putting together a whole page as I was working on a client case. This particular client, new client, but she's, I would say, kind of just roughly remember, but she's probably in her 40s. And at around age 16, she, her immune system, she hit the wall when it came to fatigue and everything. And she had a lot of problems through college. She still has persistent problems to this day. Not only she's in a very high level career, it's very technical, but she struggles, and she also struggles. She's an athlete, but she struggles. All she does now is, but she bikes a lot. But the physical activity causes supreme fatigue, and she also has with that thyroid issues, which is not uncommon. So I because a lot of times the symptoms that come with chronic fatigue are similar to other things, right? Because there's a lot of processes that are in play that go along with other things. You might have chronic Lyme disease. You might have other problems that are causing fatigue in your body. So the good thing about this presentation or this talk today is that it's not just about chronic fatigue syndrome, the classic myalgic encephalitis / chronic fatigue syndrome. Also, we bring in with that many times fibromyalgia, but it's going to be talking about strategies, nutrients, and things to boost mitochondrial energy, to boost energy in different ways. And these can pertain to a lot of us, not just somebody with that type of a condition. So I think you'll find it really interesting. Now, what else did I want to do by way of my intro? Our phone number at Wondrous Roots is 603-439-2603. I think I said that we're open 9:30 to 5 Monday through Friday, right? I think I got that all said. Okay, so if you want to participate, and please feel free, please do. You can type into the chat. You can raise your hand and speak. You can type into the Q&A, and then I'll field it from there. We did have a little bit of a snafu in the health picture in our family this past well, over the holidays, because on Christmas, my husband felt like he was coming down with a cold. He just wasn't, he said, I'm not feeling that great. We were up at the lake and he said, we had done our big celebration on Christmas Eve. So said, I think I'm going to go home in the afternoon, spend the night, and I'll come back and get you tomorrow, and blah, 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 blah. But we never thought about COVID being part of that. Dale and I never get sick. The last time we were sick, it happened the exact same way. He thought he was getting a cold. This was around Thanksgiving of 2021. And so, nip it in the bud, flu, you're not thinking, we never thought about COVID. It wasn't until days later, he couldn't smell or taste anything. And he goes, that's really weird. I can't smell or taste anything. So on Saturday of last week, he got up in the morning and he said, that's really weird. I can't taste or smell anything. And we were like, okay, well, this is COVID. And by that point in time, I was starting to feel like slight symptoms. And again, I never get a cold. So lucky for me and for Mary and for my daughter, Dale was the one who got it first, and he was the one we missed all the heads up days, all the days ahead to get on top of things with ivermectin, and used this time. Okay, this is really kind of fun. The scientist in me kind of enjoys this because I got to test this nicotine patch idea. So we started with those on Saturday. And I did end up developing symptoms like upper respiratory symptoms. It worked out really well that it was a holiday week because I just added on New Year's Eve as a day off for the holidays. And then I had already planned New Year's Day. Came in on Monday. I felt really good on Monday, and I just stayed away from people. I let my consultation people know to do it. We do it long distance, and that's what we did. But I was here doing stuff because there's a lot of stuff to do. And then Thursday and Friday, I was fine here. I had one day, Tuesday, where my voice was just really pretty much gone, but I felt good the whole time. I have felt complete normal energy. Bull jamming. I probably personally got 30 orders out the door on top of making a batch of plant and solve and Wondrous nose and all kinds of stuff and fielding clients and stuff on Monday. Just a full day. Felt fine. Slept great. But my voice was a little worn out on Tuesday. So other than that, I have felt really, really good, and I'm really grateful. Now, the interesting thing is Dale got his taste and smell back on Tuesday night. The last time this happened, this went on for a very long, like weeks and weeks and weeks, right? And I had the taste and smell weird stuff. Like I had none of that. So I really have to say, of course, this isn't a double-blind study or anything, but I have to say, based on our experience with that. So again, how does the nicotine work when it comes to COVID? Okay, number one, nicotine through transdermal patches is non-addictive. What makes nicotine itself addictive, in addition to separate from the other things in cigarette smoke that can be addictive, what makes nicotine so addictive in cigarette smoking is the high hit of nicotine that you get when you're smoking a cigarette. So we use low dose transdermal. Here's the beauty of how this all works. And it's really interesting because you guys know, those of you who are always with me here, it was only a few weeks ago that I learned about this and I did a program on it, maybe 5 weeks ago. And talked about how they were using nicotine, low dose nicotine transdermal patches for long haul COVID symptoms and getting rid of long haul COVID symptoms and people who had been suffering with them for a long, long time. And all of them. So wearing a patch for a 7 milligram patch. Well, in the study, it was 7.5 milligrams. I cannot find a 7.5 milligram. I use a 7 milligram. For 7 days and then stopping. And then problems were clearing up in those 7 days, but then problems continued to clear up for like up to a month when things still needed to go. But in the 4 cases they used, the 4 case studies that they used in this particular study, which 4 isn't that many, but when you have 100% of all symptoms cleared up in 100% of the participants, then that's a pretty good study. So anyway, this was a chance to try it, because if it does that, if you have long haul COVID, and this is how it does it. Okay, I was going to tell you that. In a nutshell, you have these docking stations in your body called the nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. And they are what nicotine locks into. The acetylcholine receptors themselves, acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter that goes missing with Alzheimer's big time, right? So acetylcholine is super, super important. And this is a high area of acetylcholine reception. So this is why, too, people can experience cognitive issues when it comes to long haul COVID, or even when you have a case of COVID, where you feel disoriented, where you don't feel oriented as well to space and time and place and time and all of that, and what's going on, what time of day is it, what day is it, blah, 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 or, other things. So anyway, so nicotine, and we saw during the first days of COVID back in 2020, during the first months of COVID, it was recognized that smokers had less of a problem with COVID, which should have been just the opposite, right? Because they're not taking good care of themselves, and that's not good for your lungs, and blah, 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 blah. So why should they have less trouble with COVID? Well, this is the secret. And it's not the ACE2 receptors, it's the nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. So there are these docking stations. And when there's space available, depending on the power of the power of the docker, okay? So the SARS-CoV-2 virus fits those receptors, and it will lock in there, and it will access your body via these receptors. And that's how it gets in. That's its gateway. Nicotine is 30 times stronger than the SARS-CoV-2 virus to docking into that station. So it's 30 times stronger than acetylcholine itself. I think I mistold you there. I'm not sure how much more powerful it is than SARS-CoV-2, but it's more powerful. And basically, the bully wins, right? So if I'm stronger than you, I pull your butt off out of my house, I toss you aside, and I jump in there. And now I'm there, and I'm blocking you, and you can't get back in. So that's basically how this works. And it's really a powerful tool. I'm surprised that we're just talking about it now in late 2024, early 2025, because this could have been employed in very many advantageously across the board as a preventive. You're going to be getting on a plane, you're going to be somewhere where you feel you're going to be exposed more in particular, or just all the time. Remember when I was doing that program, excuse me, I told you that I was thinking of just wearing one every day anyway, because of the brain benefits of nicotine. And I'm going to be talking about that a little bit more because as we get into chronic fatigue syndrome this morning, or this afternoon, because there can play a role there. So it's like, what's the harm? But I had not gone ahead and done it. I hadn't actually put one on. And now I'm like, why wouldn't you just wear these? This is really good. But wouldn't that just be a really good for everybody, for the population, to prevent SARS-CoV-2, to prevent COVID, to fill up your docking stations, give those areas that it wants to jump onto. It does. There are the ACE2 receptors as well. And I'm not saying that it's the complete cover. I can't say that I know that it is, but that's huge if you can block that. And then also to have had that taste and smell issue with my husband resolved in just a few days. His butt is dragging. This COVID did this to him the last time. With men, it tends to do this more, and it might just be different with different individuals, but I do know that, but a lot of muscular fatigue that I did not experience. But again, like last time, we never had a clue that's what we were dealing with, and days went by before we did anything about it. So anyway, I will say Mary and my daughter Krista on that Friday night, a week ago Friday night, said she had started feeling not good, not knowing what it was, but on Saturday she picked up ivermectin and nicotine patches, and she's just been off and running. She never missed a beat, and she's done she wasn't sick. And she noticed feeling better on her ride home, actually, which is about a 20-minute ride after doing both. So that's very interesting. Mary also, who works here, Mary, and we were at Mary and Krista's and stuff over Christmas, also came down with this. We never test. None of us do those stupid things that you stick up your nose. But we know it was COVID both times because of Dale's taste and smell. But she was also had like a couple days of upper respiratory kind of stuff, and is on her feet just fine. So all I can say is that is really interesting. And so let's, without getting any more into that, because I am going to be talking about nicotine, maybe I'll jump right to that when I go to my my chronic fatigue syndrome. I'm going to share my screen in a second here. Pull up that page. Chronic fatigue fibromyalgia. I have another client who's on the Zoom today, who we just finally were able to pinhole and say, you have fibromyalgia. And so I have not really developed the fibromyalgia part of this, which I have a lot of information to put on there, but you can see when I get down to the bottom, I'm like, fibromyalgia, more to come. But, oh no, you can't see it because I haven't shared my screen yet. Okay, so let me do that. Okay, share. And let me do my, put you guys over here so I can see you. Keep an eye on you, see if you're like passing notes, chewing gum, doing any of that kind of stuff. Put the chat here so I can see if you're chatting with me. All right. All right. So let me go to the top of the page. Chronic fatigue syndrome. Again, this can be found if you go to my wondrousroots.org research files. Again, I keep adding pages here. This is where this is found. And talk about what it is, blah, 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 do. But since we're talking about nicotine, I'm just going to jump down to that really quick. Yeah. Unveiling surprising benefits of nicotine for your health. And then I talked about how I did that. Okay, so here with regard to long haul COVID, ME, CFS. When you see that, I'm referring to myalgic encephalitis, which is a post-viral syndrome, chronic fatigue syndrome. Many times, chronic fatigue syndrome is a post-viral syndrome. And that's been some of the overlap with the whole long haul COVID thing as well. But it doesn't necessarily mean that every time somebody has chronic fatigue syndrome, it was a virus that started it. Could have been a trauma of some sort. It could have been, a bacterial infection. It could have been something entirely different. So the chronic fatigue syndrome kind of umbrellas much more. Myalgic encephalitis is more related to the post-viral syndrome, but how they work in the body is very similar. So there's a lot of overlap. Nicotine was a strange thing. Nicotine patches are perhaps the most surprising entrant yet in the treatment sweepstakes for long COVID, chronic fatigue syndrome, ME, CFS, fibromyalgia, and related diseases. Indeed, a close look at what nicotine patches do brings up the question if they didn't show up on the why they didn't show up on the radar of these patients, long before the coronavirus pandemic hit. And this doctor is quoted saying, "It's fascinating to me, frankly, that one molecule found in nature can be so potent. It's hard to imagine you could engineer a drug to do this." This is, again, Again, this is nicotine comes from the tobacco plant. So this is herbal medicine, right there, herbal medicine 101. So a lot of times it takes a lot to rethink things, doesn't it? We tend to get, oh, nicotine is bad, nicotine is bad, nicotine. We just sort of get that pounded into our heads. Not so. And then this page here, again, on my page, you can go back to it and you can click on links and find all kinds of information. Cindy Tucker, Cindy is asking, Cindy, why do you stop the nicotine patch after 7 days? They did that in the study. That's how the study that I featured a few weeks ago that they did for long haul COVID, those were the parameters. It wasn't, as far as I know, and I'm sure not because of what we know about using them, that there was a danger using them longer. They wanted to see what 7 days of treatment would do for long haul COVID. So that's the only reason I didn't stop the patch after 7 days. I'm not going to stop the patch. But that was for the purposes of that particular study. Good, very good question. And people, you might ask, like, do they make you feel weird or anything? No, I mean, you have no idea that, unless I guess a person was not feeling as quick in the brain or whatever, you might feel better. But yeah, I didn't feel anything. Higher dose, like if you went to a 15 milligram patch, you might get the runs or feel nauseous, want to vomit. If you went to a high patch and you were not used to nicotine, but 7 milligrams is a very small, low dose. Nicotine tells all about it there. The feel-good enhancer. The fact that nicotine might make people feel better is no surprise, given how many people smoked cigarettes, pipes before their dangers became apparent. By enhancing the activity of the nicotinic acetylcholine receptors in the brain, nicotine increases several feel-good chemicals, mostly dopamine, but also serotonin, GABA, endogenous opioids, and endorphins, and that may be lacking in the brains of people with myalgic encephalitis, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and long COVID. Nicotine also triggers the release of acetylcholine and activates the sympathetic nervous system, causing the release of epinephrine and norepinephrine, a stimulating neurotransmitter. So definitely working on the brain in positive ways. Immune enhancer as well. It says here, immune enhancement is a total surprise, though. Nicotine also plays a key role in the cholinergic system, a system that presents fascinating possibilities for diseases like myalgic encephalitis, ME/CFS, and fibromyalgia, which feature an underactive parasympathetic nervous or rest and digest system. The cholinergic system involves neurotransmitters, acetylcholine receptors, and enzymes that activate the cholinergic anti-inflammatory pathway. With its direct link between the central nervous and immune systems, a dysregulated cholinergic system is believed to lead to inflammatory and autoimmune diseases. It turns out that nicotine enhances the productivity of this beaten down system in this syndrome. So this could be huge. This could be huge for people suffering from these things. Brain fog helper. Aspects of brain fog, a recent paper, Nicotine's Effect on Condition, reported that nicotine can enhance attention in short-term memory and long-term memory, and nicotine has been used as a performance-enhancing drug. While warning of the dangers of smoking and high-dose nicotine use, the authors conclude that nicotine-derived compounds could be a promising strategy to alleviate neurological disease-associated cognitive deficit. That's a huge problem today. We have so many, we did that whole program on Alzheimer's for 4 weeks. This is a huge, huge problem. And I talked about that a little bit when I was talking about nicotine with regard to long haul COVID a few weeks ago. So anyway, we have here showing nicotine smoking or smoking had significant positive effects on aspects of fine motor abilities, alerting and orienting attention, and episodic and working memory. A more recent meta-analysis of 33 studies featuring nicotine patches found that they had statistically significant positive effects on attention. but non-significant effects on memory in healthy non-smoking adults. That's a particular study. I wouldn't base too much on that. There's so much else out there. Immune response, neuroinflammatory diseases such as multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, and nicotine has produced a variety of positive effects in multiple sclerosis mouse model. And then anyway, exercise enhancer. Okay, this is very important because this is one of the problems with ME/CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome, is this poor disrupted mitochondrial energy, oxygen, and fuel use in the body when that condition is present. And so says that 2017 meta-analysis reported about 2/3 of studies found that nicotine significantly increased heart rate compared to placebo or control. Given the conotropic incompetence that appears to be happening in ME/CFS, the ability to raise the heart rate during exercise might be a help. Increased blood pressure and blood flows were also reported to be significantly increased in multiple studies, according to like when they're supposed to be, when you're exercising, right? Another study found that nicotine improved anaerobic performance, but a recent study did not. So anyway, the studies go here and there, but most nicotine clinical trials are focused on smoking, but nicotine is also currently being assessed in depression, chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, improved hearing in the elderly, and improving cognition. So anyway, talk about that. We've got a lot more to get to, but you can see there. So I would definitely put in as a recommendation in people with these particular conditions, the nicotine patch, for sure, as a try. So again, whenever I'm working with a particular entity, illness, condition, disorder, I always say you have to use the slap it silly approach, which is we might read or learn that one thing is very good. And you say, well, you know what? I think I'm just going to try nicotine and see if that does it. It's not going to do it. It can be part of a protocol that really does it. But again, you try to hit everything from different angles. And even when it comes to the mitochondrial boosting nutrients, they all work in different ways. So you don't say, well, I'm just going to choose. Am I going to use D-ribose or am I going to use CoQ10? Or am I going to use L-carnitine? Or am I going to use niacinamide? Or which one will I use? No, not a good idea unless you want to spend many months or years trying to get better. The fastest route I have found is slap it silly, and that's using many things all at the same time that complement each other in how they work. It's kind of like you can't just have an excellent quarterback, right? You've got to have somebody to pass it off to or whatever. I'm not a football, what an expert. But I mean, you have to have a team. You can't have just one stellar thing. Wow, quarterbacks are great. They can really win games. They can really score touchdowns, right? But you've got to have all of those other players on that team to get the touchdowns. So, so think of it that way. And if you want to get there faster, you got to slap it silly. So again, let's just kind of go over what it is. It causes extreme fatigue that lasts for at least 6 months is what kind of classifies this. This is actually CNN. This is actually the CDC's clinical overview. But here, I'll read this one was actually from Mayo. Symptoms worsen with physical or mental activity, but don't fully improve with rest. So you really get wiped out and you don't recover well, which makes it all the harder because it's not like you have it and it stays at baseline, it worsens. Triggered by a combination of factors. There's no single test to confirm a diagnosis, like it's on a blood test. You might need a variety of medical tests to rule out other problems. Like with my client, she was looking more at her thyroid. And the thyroid, there's a lot of overlap there. And the thyroid, low thyroid, right, can cause a lot of these problems. Problems with memory or thinking skills, extreme exhaustion, physical fatigue, joint pain, unrefreshing, all of those things. So there can be a lot of overlap, but it was the fact that she went back so many decades to being a young teenager, actually, that you would have to say this is chronic fatigue syndrome. Now, she cannot remember any being sick around that time. She doesn't remember having been sick. She doesn't remember any kind of precipitating event. And that's sometimes a hard thing. But if you have, or you know somebody who you think has chronic fatigue syndrome, that's something to think about. Always go back and ask. Something I always ask people, do you remember? Even did you hit your head? Did you, were you sick? Did you receive a vaccine series, or did something happen at that time that stands out to you? And but it's not the same for everybody, and we don't know exactly what is always behind it. So but here we have extreme exhaustion after physical or mental exercise, problems with memory or thinking skills, dizziness that worsens with moving from lying down or sitting to standing. So maybe some orthostatic hypotension, the blood pressure you can't recover from quickly when you stand up, muscle or joint pain, unrefreshing sleep. Not everybody has everything. The client that I'm talking about, the recent client, has no muscle or joint pain. She doesn't have that feature of this. So anyway, this actually, the CDC, this is actually pretty good overview. So if you want to kind of look at more of what that all is, again, we don't know exactly what it is. It could be caused, increasingly viewed as an infection-associated chronic illness, because the frequency of its association with infection and the symptom overlap with illnesses following known infections. Other factors may also contribute to the development. So think Epstein-Barr. That was what I asked her too. I'm like, well, okay, you were a teenager, so did you have mono? I mean, I had mono when I was 16. A lot of people did. She does not ever know of having had mono. So which would be Epstein-Barr. And then we have, so Epstein-Barr, Ross River, these are some of the viruses that could be implicated. And then we actually do have SARS-CoV-2 there. People who had severe symptoms with these illnesses were more likely than those with mild symptoms to later develop chronic fatigue-like illness. No single infectious agent has been established as a cause. However, 80% of patients develop that following an acute viral-like illness. In most cases, the cause of the infection is unknown. Stressors, accident, trauma, immobilization, surgery, significant physical or emotional stress can precipitate it. It has been observed within some families. This suggests either a possible genetic link or a common environmental exposure, infectious or toxic. Twin studies show higher rates of them in identical twins than in fraternal twins. And then environmental factors, mold, toxins, have also been suspected as a trigger. So a lot of different etiologies here we could be having for similar symptom-like condition in many different people. Onset can be acute or gradual. Flu-like syndrome, fever, malaise, aches, respiratory symptoms, acute infections such as Epstein-Barr, trauma such as a car accident or surgery. Clinical features. So again, I think this is really important to see this because people with this type of a condition, and it tends to bother women more than men. So right there, you've got a strike against you when you go to see the doctor, because women are just more mysterious and they're very much more easily able to say, you need an antidepressant, come back and see me in 6 months. It is a biological illness. It is not a psychological disorder. So this is biological. This is physiological. This is something going on within the body of the person with the condition. It is not people feeling sorry for themselves. Patients are neither malingering, okay, you just want to stay home, nor seeking secondary gain. Patients have multiple pathophysiological changes that affect multiple organ systems. So anyway, the immune system, energy metabolism, the neuroendocrine system, the autonomic nervous system, the gastrointestinal system, other changes. And again, you can go to my page, you can see all of these. Antithyroid, here we go. I was talking about the antithyroid antibodies. So some people with this condition have impaired natural killer cell function and or T cell function. They may have chronic higher production of inflammatory cytokines. In some cases, there may be a slight increase in autoantibodies. These include rheumatic factor, antithyroid antibodies, anti-gliadin, okay, so think wheat, anti-smooth muscle antibodies, and cold agglutinins. Mast cell activation syndrome has also been reported. And some people may not efficiently produce or use energy from the usual fuel cells. Oxygen, glucose, fatty acids, amino acids. Exercise studies in adults show impaired oxygen consumption and activation of anaerobic metabolic pathways in early exercise stages. The neuroendocrine system, the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So difficulties with cortisol. In fact, my client has been on and has a prescription for hydrocortisone, which is when you're really flatlined in the adrenals. Like a lot of people's adrenals are stressed and they have high cortisol because they're midway stressed. When your adrenals are really stressed, they can flatline and you really need extra cortisol given to you. The autonomic nervous system, or the problems with POTS syndrome, if you guys, postural or orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and especially in younger adolescents, and these where when they rise from a lying down position, supine position, their blood pressure can go super high, their heart rate, that kind of thing. Gastrointestinal system. Some people have irritable bowel syndrome, leaky gut, or changes in the microbiome of the intestines. So it's a lot. This can really affect, you can see, can affect somebody's health in a lot of ways. So again, where do I want to go here? All right, so here we go. So here, chronic fatigue syndrome might have a crucial hormonal link. For years, a line has been divided, millions of parents. Okay, we talked about this, blah, blah, blah. Biological mechanisms. A link between chronic fatigue syndrome, aka myalgic encephalitis, and lower thyroid hormone levels. If the findings can be confirmed by additional research, it could be a first step toward finding a treatment for this maddening, mysterious disease. So it's trying to decide what's going on in the first place, blah, blah, blah. We talked about that. And also, what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? When it comes to the thyroid, did thyroid disruption, what do I want to say, predispose a person to chronic fatigue syndrome, developing chronic fatigue syndrome? Or did the disruption from the chronic fatigue syndrome cause the disruption in the thyroid? I would guess and say that it makes sense that in the majority of cases, the CFS would come first because it does have an effect on the immune system. It can have an effect on the immune system, maybe causing an autoimmune attack, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, right? Or even Graves' disease going the other way. But the thyroid is very delicate. The thyroid hormone system is a very delicate balance. And so we can see easily how that could throw something off and then be like, just like adding to your symptom load, just making everything so much worse. So you don't, like my approach would not be like, well, let's just deal with the CFS and your thyroid should come along. No, we do both. You address the CFS and you address the thyroid at the same time. This new study led by biochemist so-and-so compared thyroid function and markers of inflammation between 98 chronic fatigue syndrome patients with 99 healthy control participants. What they found was that chronic fatigue syndrome patients had lower serum levels of two key thyroid hormones, T3 and T4, but normal levels of TSH. That's usually present at higher levels in hypothyroidism, the better understood condition that usually displays low thyroid hormone production. So your TSH might look fine. And sometimes, your doctors are only looking at TSH first. And then if the TSH is fine, they're like, well, you're fine. And they don't look any further. It says, sorry, just putting my lip gloss on. To the extent that they can characterize it so far, the researchers hypothesize that chronic fatigue syndrome is caused by low activity of thyroid hormones in the absence of thyroidal disease, since the patients in the study had regular amounts of the thyroid stimulating hormone called thyrotropin. So that's what they hypothesize, that the CFS is caused by the low activity of the thyroid hormones. In addition, the chronic fatigue syndrome patients demonstrated low-grade inflammation generally, plus higher levels of another thyroid hormone called reverse T3, which is thought to contribute to an overall reduction in T3 hormones. In any case, they can be interrelated, but does that mean that everybody with chronic fatigue syndrome necessarily has a thyroid issue? I would guess that probably the vast majority would, just because of so much connectivity, but not necessarily. And then if we look at high dose thiamine. Now, I don't want to get into the high dose so much, and I don't want to get too bogged down with this, but thiamine is very important. Thiamine is also very important for things like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And this is something that I want to hone in more on, and I might do that. You can tell we're at 10 minutes. I did get a late start this morning, but we've only got like 10 minutes left, and I've hardly scratched the surface. So this is definitely going to be a two-header, because there's just so much richness here to go over, to uncover. But this particular, now they're talking about high dose, and I don't think, I guess what I'm doing is I'm grabbing from this the B1, and I'm grabbing from this the form of B1 that I would like to use for this, which is called lipothiamine. It's not benfotiamine. We use that for neuropathy. And a lot of you have heard me talk about benfotiamine many times, but benfotiamine does not get into the brain like lipothiamine does. And I also favor the low dose. In fact, I just started using, because I did this research and I think it's so fascinating, a 50 milligram tablet of lipothiamine 3 times a day, along with a 3 times a day, 50 milligram tablet of niacinamide. And I think, oh man, I just have so much to say. Okay, so let's go away from this for now. Let me just see the thiamine. Let's just see. Yeah, there's probably, why might thiamine reduce fatigue? If high-dose thiamine does not work by addressing a thiamine deficiency, through what mechanism does it reduce fatigue? The short answer is we do not know for sure, but several hypotheses have been offered. It says, building on a hypothesis first advanced by Costantini, Badger, and Bager and colleagues, suggest the possibility that high-dose thiamine may help compensate for a defect in the active transport mechanism through which thiamine is normally absorbed. While the effect of high-dose oral thiamine was highly significant in our study, the authors write its exact mechanisms still need to be explored. The theory of a dysfunction in thiamine transport from blood to mitochondria remains a plausible explanation. Again, mitochondria, mitochondriac. Thiamine is very important for the mitochondrial function. And I have my reasons for preferring the lower dose, more frequent dose. And that stays away from possible problems that come with high dose thiamine. And we're not using thiamine hydrochloride. We're using a form that is much more readily available to the circuits that we want activated for chronic fatigue syndrome. I'll leave it at that, like for now, for my take on all of this. The other one I want to hit at, let's go here since we just talked about that though. Thiamine and riboflavin for chronic fatigue. Riboflavin is one of the B vitamins as well. Thiamine is vitamin B1. So thiamine is vitamin B2. No. Riboflavin is vitamin B2. So we got 1 and 2 here. And here we have a young man and powerful, blah, 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 blah. Mitochondrial testing ensued, and upon confirmation, treatment with vitamins thiamine and riboflavin commenced. Within a month, there was significant improvement that was maintained at the 5-year follow-up. Effectively, vitamins treated what medicine could not. This guy was not doing well. And I take 400 milligrams of riboflavin a day extra as part of my protocol for myself because of MTHFR, the B vitamin issues, and more riboflavin is indicated for me. Riboflavin is, again, very important for mitochondrial energy. So here again, we see these B vitamins being super, super important, thiamine being one. But then I'm going to talk about all of these things again next week. But I wanted to get to, one of the big things is niacinamide. So niacinamide is vitamin B3. So thiamine is B1. Riboflavin is B2. Now we come to B3. B3 is also niacin, but niacinamide is the form of niacin that is non-flushing. And it also, niacinamide is what really helps with boosting your ATP, your mitochondrial energy. Let's see. I think I might have had a. So I'm going to go to this article. This is the one that a lot of you are going to say, oh, I want to learn about that. And this is why what really piqued my interest and why I'm doing it too, because I'd like to lose a couple of pounds in the new year. So, and then, okay. So a client this week asked me about a new supplement for weight loss because of all of the rage of the GLP-1s and, Ozempic and Roe and all that stuff. And that's like all the rage. And she says, well, I found another one. She says, but it's very expensive. And I can't tell you what the name of it was now. I might be able to. Let me see if I grab her folder, if I wrote it down. Because I looked it up when I was talking with her. So I don't see it. But anyway, the whole idea was because I had just read this about the niacinamide. It works that way, but it's like $246 a month. This supplement that's just has this remarkable effect on weight loss. And this is how it works. So, and again, by boosting the NAD plus, which is a huge huge part of our mitochondrial energy correct function, is being rich in NAD plus. Niacinamide is a precursor to nicotine, blah, 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 NAD plus, a vital signaling molecule that's believed to play an important role in longevity. Niacinamide, also known as nicotinamide, supplementation increased cellular NAD levels by 30%. Niacinamide decreased fat accumulation in mice with diet-induced obesity by 47%, while increasing lean mass by 1.4-fold. That's very significant, a 47% number. Even if you watch the TV ads and you see for the Ozempic and things like that, I don't think they come up to 47% in their advertising. It is likely because of financial interest, yes, that the best NAD plus precursor, niacinamide, is not recommended more frequently. It costs less than a penny a day. So again, this is a very inexpensive way, but it's not the high dose. In fact, you can hardly find a supplement out there that's less than 500 milligrams if you're buying just straight B3. And in fact, this is Mercola, Joseph Mercola, who wrote this, and the one that I stock is one that he makes. It's his label because it's a 50 milligram tablet. Because the higher doses don't do it. Aha. So interesting. The ideal dosing of niacinamide is from 25 to 50 milligrams 3 times a day. How simple is that? How cheap is that? Time-restricted eating, physical exercise, and sauna bathing are examples of methods that increase your NAD levels naturally. It says it's been found to improve insulin sensitivity in models of human diabetes, for instance, and it also decreases oxidative stress and prevents fatty liver. It also shows impressive promise for fighting obesity and associated diseases, including stroke, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and certain cancers, which have reached epidemic levels worldwide. But what you need is the right Goldilocks dose. The most common mistake people make is taking too much and thereby actually sabotaging any metabolic benefits. This is another complaint of the client. I worked up this information on her case, is she cannot lose weight to save her soul. No matter what diet she does, no matter what she restricts, no matter what approach she's taking. And again, this plays into her low thyroid and the metabolism hit from there, the low mitochondrial energy, not being able to burn energy for fuel. And so you can see how this is such a smart way of going about something like wanting to lose weight, right? Because you're dealing with things that are so foundational to health. ATP, mitochondrial energy, getting all of that going. That is super, super important. We don't want to just do something that has no relationship to greater health. Well, maybe you do because you want to lose a lot of weight. But how far better to why do you have all that weight, right? Why is that weight there? Why are you not burning that weight? Why is it harder for you to lose weight now than it was when you were younger? So that kind of thing. Well, ATP has a lot to do with that. And so here we go. Niacinamide reprograms fat metabolism, ameliorates obesity. NAD modulates energy production in many enzymes, and in so doing controls hundreds of processes in your body, including the survival of cells and energy metabolism. NAD plus is influenced on a daily basis by what you eat, exercise levels, and more, and also declines with age, leading to changes in metabolism and an increased risk of disease. Boosting NAD plus levels may be akin to a fountain of youth, which is where niacinamide as an NAD plus precursor comes in. More than 2 billion people worldwide are overweight, blah, 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 blah. Okay. NAD plus has notable roles in obesity with higher levels linked to decreases in fat tissue in obese rodents and humans. NAM, which is another name, nicotinamide, reprograms fat cellular metabolism and increases mitochondrial biogenesis to ameliorate obesity. In a study on obese mice, NAM, nicotinamide, supplementation led to significant reductions in fat mass and improved glucose tolerance while increasing mitochondrial biogenesis in fat tissue. So when we look at mitochondrial energy optimizers, different ones do different things. Remember, I did the program on aging with grace, and I talked about, oh, come on. It was the thing that boosts the muscles the most. And I was just giving Dale some of that this morning, but I can't think of the name of it. It'll come to me. And they were saying that NAD was not the best for that, that that NAM was not the best for that particular thing, developing the muscle mass, that it was the urolithin A. That's what it is, the urolithin A. That was the shining thing there, this CoQ10. But see, those, they all have their kind of areas where they excel the most, and kind of like making it all of our mitochondria acting as they, behaving as they should, fueled as they should be. And anyway, so yeah, Connie had to leave. We're running late. She's got to go play pickleball. Well, good. That'll get her her NAD plus right up there. But thanks for being with us, Connie. And I am going to let you go because I am at the hour here. But there's so much more to say. What I want you to do is, if you're interested in this, just open my page. If you're watching this on Rumble or YouTube and you don't have, well, you do know how to do it because it's actually on my my website. So you go to wondrousfoods.org, research files, chronic fatigue. It's there. But the link to this page will be in the information on the YouTube and Rumble. Niacinamide is the best NAD precursor plus precursor. It's not just, okay, this is a good one, it does it, and it's cheap. It's like, no, it's the best. Why you haven't heard about it is because it's inexpensive. Tells you how to dose it. Why boosting levels is so important. So we have a lot of space to go here, a lot of ground to cover. And I have a feeling this might take a couple of weeks. And again, not because I don't feel bad about that, because it's not like this only pertains to people with that one condition. I want to know everything myself about the ins and outs of mitochondrial function and how best to support that, because that's involved in all of health. Mitochondrial energy decline has been called the decline of life's energy. It is what makes us age and fail. So we really want to make sure that we are doing that. So there are so many things here, and I think everybody will benefit. Everybody will see benefit in learning these things and then perhaps applying them as fits your individual particular situation. But in any case, that is going to be it for today. I am going to say goodbye. I cannot be here next week. I just forgot about that, but I have a service for a client who was diagnosed. By the time he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, it had spread everywhere. And so he was with us only a short time after I got to know him, but dearly loved getting to know this couple. And his wife will be a friend for life, and his service is next Saturday during this time. So I will not be here next week. So we have to wait another whole week to carry this on, but we will get there. In any case, I thank you all for being here, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I wish you a blessed and healthy 2025. I'm excited about it, and I think we have a lot to look forward to. So take care and be well.